If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. My name is Ray Johns. I'm your host, and the name of the show is Ray Johns, American Patriot. And as you know, every week we feature a different patriot. You know, I've been thinking that these people, it seems like as I do the research and come up with these people, some enterprising person out there should write a book, should take a bunch of these people and write a book on unsung, unknown heroes of different wars, because there's so many of them, and they're like a great novel, half of them. This week, it's Mary Bowser. Now, Mary Bowser was actually born a slave and came up through, and at the beginning of the Civil War, she was in the South, and she was such a good servant that she was always loaned out to do things, and she found herself a lot of time in situations in Southern mansions where there were a lot of military. And so she started taking what she knew and became a spy and started taking her secrets back to the Union and became very well known, most famously for actually being a servant in the what they call the Southern White House, which was Davis was the president of the Jefferson Davis, of course, was president of the South, and he had a mansion in Virginia, and she worked there, and they thought she was illiterate, and so she got all this information, took it to the Union side, and was actually several people of distinction said that if she was certainly one of the greatest spies of the Civil War, if not the greatest and the most valuable. So, Mary Bowser, a great American patriot, and sitting right here next to me is my favorite American patriot, old Gary. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Ray. By God,
we got some good stuff.
Yeah, I think so. By gosh, in fact, today I think we could officially say that today marks the first day of the Big Ugly.
Okay.
And the Big Ugly is all about the draining of the deep state, draining of the swamp. And
we continue.
This has been going on, for a couple of years, on and on. And of course, people get impatient. Mm-hmm. People that do not pay attention, all they're getting is the fake news, so they don't care one way or another.
Look at what's happening. I mean, look at the wall. Look at this. Look at the progress on the wall. And like you said, they continue. Today's the first day of the Big Ugly. I mean.
Well, this is the day that Horowitz is starting to put what he has discovered in the time that he's been investigating the FBI and a number of other things. And what we need to put in perspective here, and let's look at it. It doesn't matter whether you are a liberal or you are a conservative. Regardless, both should be very concerned about what has happened recently.
I agree.
Okay, and there again, I want to emphasize: I don't care if you're as liberal as you can get, or as conservative as you can get, but this does affect you both equally.
Oh, okay.
Or affect, I should say, all of us equally. Yeah. Okay, and that has been what has been a effort of tyranny, of taking over our government and replacing basically the Constitution. And this has been going on for years, as far as the amount of corruption and the aim going clear back. And there's a lot of things that are involved, like, for instance, we can go back to health care, and we can go back to the indoctrination of school children and so forth and so on. But we're going to skip that forward, and let's just look at a proof that hopefully we can understand.
Okay.
And that is that Mueller and his investigation team have been on a fake, false premise for over a year, which is the Russia
Sure.
collusion deal. Okay. Now, that is proved to be, well, what it proved to be fake.
Yeah,
Right.
it did.
And that's all people got on their TV every night for forever. And the purpose of that is they do not want, when I say they do not want Donald Trump, is that they is both Republican and Democrat. And it's the trillionaire, or billionaires, I mean, both Democrat and Republican, that been controlling this.
Sure.
And it includes a tremendous number of Congress and senators who have been bought by all this. Okay, so I just make it simple like that. Okay, but now this investigation went nowhere with the Russia.
There wasn't anything to investigate.
No,
Yeah.
it went nowhere.
Yeah.
And I often wonder at times if they didn't at times have to say, well, there is nothing there. I mean, how long does it really take to realize? And what it boils down to, in its simplest form, it boiled down the ability of a United States department, in this case the judiciary part, the FBI, the CIA, and the DOJ, the Department of Justice, the ability to pick any American, fabricate the evidence, go to a judge, and the judge approves a fake, false, in order to subvert you.
Gary, how scary is that?
Now that has to scare every American.
That is scary.
Well,
that is extremely
right.
scary. It sounds
right.
Because Gary made it sound easy, and it is just that easy.
Yes,
it's just that easy. How scary is that?
Yeah.
You know?
So what was happening is we want to get rid of this form of government that's in place right now, and we want to get rid of the guy who is bringing it back to what it was supposed to be or intended to be, and we got to get rid of him. So in its simplest form, what we do is construct fake evidence, and we take this fake evidence down to a judge who has to approve the investigation.
Yeah.
In order for us to start investigating, we take this to a judge who approves the fake evidence. That's as simple as that. Yeah. So then what happens? Well, then we go on, and now we have approval to investigate all this fake evidence with the hope of being able to get rid of who is trying to stop us from taking this country over.
Yeah.
Okay? It's pretty simple like that.
Yeah.
But it's not simple. I mean, it's very involved. But we're not going to do that. We just need it.
No, I'm glad you explained it the way you did.
Okay, so now, so we runs up to here, and now we're at a point where, wait a minute, everybody's starting to realize this is fake. Everybody's starting to realize this is wrong. Everybody's starting to realize that maybe there is corruption all the way down to our own government is full of corrupt all the way down to a guy emptying waste baskets. So we get kind of scared about that. Okay, but the investigators, they've run out of what they can nail this with. So let's understand this part right, because it's very important. President Trump, he has an attorney, which we understand about client-attorney privilege. In other words, Ray, if you and I have a dispute, obviously you have an attorney and I have an attorney. Well, I discuss with my attorney, and you're discussing with your attorney, and you're formulating what is going on, and so was I. Now, there's no such thing as I go over to your attorney and start asking him about what you guys discussed.
Yeah, no.
I mean, come on, that's not going to work. Is it?
No.
I mean, it's not even hardly heard of.
No.
So what they do is this investigation goes to Trump's attorney, and surprise attack, he might as well have been a nuclear bomb, and goes to his attorney and raids his attorney and gets all the information that attorney had on Trump.
Oh, my goodness.
All that Trump and him have discussed. So what does that mean? It means that does away with client-attorney privilege.
Yeah.
Well, if they could do that with Donald Trump, President of the United States, doesn't it stand to reason, Ray, they could probably do that with you and
Oh,
I?
absolutely.
And let's just say perhaps it's already been done over, and we
To a
just,
certain extent, sure.
and we're
I can
just
believe
not,
that.
we just don't know about
Yeah.
it. Okay, because people are coming out of the woodwork that have had that happen to them.
Yeah.
Now you remember what this is. This is a raid, unannounced, on the attorney for the President of the United States. Now, he's going to get that evidence, whatever that evidence is. That's not why that raid was. And, it wasn't there to go get evidence. They didn't care what evidence was in there. But the very fact that they raided it, whatever they said in there, everybody's going to believe it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use an example, and you'll understand that. Okay, at your house, you have a building out there, a small shed, locked, and it holds your lawnmower and your shovel and a hoe.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's in there.
Yeah.
Okay, this guy breaks in. Say your neighbor or somebody breaks into your shed. He looks in there. What does he find? He finds a lawnmower, a shovel, and a hoe. And he gets back out and he says, "Man, Ray got his shed broke in last night. Did you hear about that?" "Oh yeah." "What did they find in there? Do you know?" "Yeah, I do know. They found about 50 AK-47s."
Yeah.
They found a bomb making machine.
Uh-huh.
Well, how do you know? Well, I happened to be over there when the guy was breaking in, and I went in there with him, and I seen what was in there.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, what does all your neighborhood think?
Oh, yeah. You're guilty as can be.
Well, you've got 50 AK-47s
Yeah.
and a bomb making machine,
Yeah.
right? Why? Because the people that went in there said that's what they saw.
Yeah.
But what did they really see? A lawnmower, a shovel, and a hoe.
That was it.
Are they going to believe that? No. They're
No.
going.
Absolutely.
So
Good
somebody.
example.
Okay, so somebody sits there and says, "Hey, I see where they hauled your buddy Ray away." "Yeah, they did." "Well, why did they haul him?" "Oh man, I've known Ray for a long time. Been in this neighborhood. I had no idea. He had 50 AK-47s in there." You see why they raided Trump's attorney now?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
So now they can leak to the press, and whatever they say, man, it's overnight to millions
And
of
that's
people.
exactly what's happening right now.
And that was the purpose of it.
That makes so much sense, Gary.
Now, does that make sense now?
Makes a lot of sense.
Now, shouldn't you, as an average citizen, whether you're a conservative or a liberal, be very concerned about something like that?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter. It really, I see what you mean. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You should be concerned. That is scary.
Well, that is what it is circumventing the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And the founding fathers, that's the reason that Constitution had these provisions in
Sure
there
it is.
to protect the people.
Exactly.
These people are ignoring the Constitution. In fact, what they want to do is do away with the Constitution. There's so many things in there. Look at the gun control.
Oh, yeah. That's
The
probably-
Second
that's-
Amendment.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
If you think for 1 minute that those liberals and all that are, or I should say communists, if you think for a minute that they're interested in whether you're going to go shoot somebody with those guns or not, no, that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in you not having a gun so that when they take over, you can't go shoot at
Shoot them. Yeah.
It's that simple. I'm a little concerned. They shot that school up. It has nothing to do with the gun control because guns never kill people. You see, it all has to do with the inability of you being able down the road.
It makes so much sense.
And why did they put that in as a second? It was so important. It was the Second Amendment. And the reason they put that in because without the Second Amendment, there's no First Amendment.
I love that. I love that. You said that once before.
And that's freedom of speech, which
Yeah.
means freedom.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that was the purpose of that was so that the people of the country could take over a tyrannical takeover of the country, could defend themselves and prevent it, and that's what we're having right now.
Yeah.
And why they want to take everyone's gun and use this false premise about how unsafe they are is because they then would have control, obviously.
Completely.
And let's keep things, because we've been kind of keeping this conversation simple here. Let's just make it one more simple. Okay? You've got a house and you've got a gun. This house next door, your neighbor doesn't have one. Now, who's the most unsafe? You with a gun or the person with the house without a gun?
The person in the house without a gun.
Common sense.
Yeah.
In fact, I kind of have fun once in a while. I go into a restaurant, and the little waitress there, and I'll say, "Hey, do you have a loaded 357 under that cash register?" "Oh, no, sir. No, we don't." I said, "Man, that's too bad, because I'm going to have to go to another restaurant. Yours is not very safe."
I love it. I love it. Gary, we're going to take a little break here. We're going to take a little break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in, say, 2 and 2. Okay, I'm back. I'm back here with Gary, and we're talking just about, just everything. When we left, where were we?
Well, we were with that break-in, and it wasn't to go dig out evidence they didn't
I love
already
this part.
have.
Say that again.
Well, I mean, they've been digging Trump forever now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if there was any evidence, it would have already been there.
Sure, they would have found it.
Right.
There is none to be found.
But if there is a client privilege with his client, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there might be things like, he had a girlfriend back on 16th Street. Yeah. But no, who cares, right? All right, so let's go to this. Let's just keep this in mind. The purpose of that was to be able to say whatever they want without question.
Sure.
I mean, they could say, "Hey, I went in there and I found all kinds of stuff," and I used the illustration of you with that shop in your backyard. Mm-hmm. That somebody wanted you out of that neighborhood. They broke into it. They didn't break in to steal your lawnmower. That's all that was in it. They broke in so they could tell the rest of the neighborhood all that guy's got in there is 50 AK-47s and a bomb-making machine.
Yeah.
Now, what are they going to believe?
Of course they're going to believe that.
Well, of course they're going to believe that. Man, he broke in. And that's what that break-in was all about. The break-in was to be able now to go to the press and tell the press whatever they want, however ludicrous it is.
Unbelievable.
And
we all know about the fake press anyway.
Right. Well, they're going to jump on anything they can. In fact, embellish even that.
Yeah.
But here's what's fearful, or whether you're a Trump person or not, it has nothing to do with it. The point is you're an American, and that could happen to you.
Sure.
And it has happened. And it's been happening for over 30, 40 years now. I didn't realize that they've been using the courts with fake evidence, presenting to the judge to take you out.
Boy, that is scary. I keep saying it, but it is, to me, it's just scary as hell.
Well, I was reading where there's a couple of businessmen who that has happened to them. They lost their business, where competition wanted them out of town, and that happened. It was fake stuff on this person, back to where they're saying it's an AK-47 instead of a lawnmower. Uh-huh. And these people were defenseless because of the attorney fees and so forth to defend themselves. Who are they defending themselves against? Yeah. The United States government with an unending amount of money.
Yeah.
So what they would do is plead guilty to a reduction.
Sure. Absolutely. That's the old game anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So they plead guilty, but were they guilty? No. So then they get you for unlawful this and unlawful that, meaning that unlawful AK-47s and bomb-making machine. And now they'll get you with that evidence. It's false evidence. But now you can defend yourself, but you're defending yourself against the FBI of the United States. Now, how in the world can you survive that?
Yeah. Well, you can't.
So you just say, "Hey, I'll admit guilt. What is going to be my deal?" Well, what it's going to be your deal is you get out of town. Guilty, and you leave town. And that's what's happened to a lot of people. And this is all coming out now. And so I don't care what you are out there. There again, liberal or conservative or Democrat or Republican, it affects everybody the same.
Yeah.
Now let's go to the Congress. Let's go to the Senate. These people are bought. Now you'll notice there's a ton of them leaving. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why they're leaving. Because they're in that corruption. Mm-hmm. And they're out of here. And that's part of the deal. is maybe it's sort of like maybe it's best you retire, and if you do, we're not going to do anything with all this stuff that we now know about you, that we know about you. But probably the easiest thing for you to do is just Well, they all have. It's amazing how many of them all want to spend more time with their family.
All of a sudden. All of a sudden.
So that is really what's going on. And as of today, Horowitz put out his first, because they're waiting on his IG report.
Yeah.
Attorney, the investigative attorney that he is, and so they're waiting for that report. And he's been researching this now for I don't know when he was appointed. Let's just say over a year.
Yeah.
That he's been compiling this investigation, and so he let out the first thing. Well, the first thing he let out, and there's going to be hundreds more coming down the pike, but the first thing he let out was McCabe and why he was fired. Mm-hmm. And come to find out, he lied to everybody. He lied to Congress.
McCabe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He lied to the FBI. Mm-hmm. He lied to the Congress.
Yeah.
And, of course, he lied to his own people.
Yeah.
And he set his own people up for the fall.
Yeah.
Now you talk a guy that's probably not very happy with himself right now.
Well, his own doing or undoing.
Right.
So to
that
speak.
goes to show you the kind of people, though, that can get themselves, people like that, into a position of power.
Isn't that amazing?
That's my point. A position of power that, hey, if McCabe was in charge and he comes over to you at that building and you said, no, all I got is, and he wants it to be a bomb-making machine, you have no choice. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of power he was in that would affect a lot of innocent people, okay? And this is something that people have to get a little bit beyond the Republican, beyond the Democrat thing. And I think, I noticed that both you and I both have kind of changed we kind of look at it as one. Mm-hmm. We kind of got into where we're saying, man, we're either patriots or we're not. Or we're not, you know. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do.
Because to me, you can be a Democrat and be patriotic as all get out, mm-hmm. and also a Republican. And I think that people are starting to wake up to the fact that, hey, I don't know if I better look at my own party and see what's going on here. I know I have.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, Trump as an example is Republican because there's a lot of efficiencies that go on mm-hmm. with that. But does it really make any difference, let's say the next go around, if Trump ran as a Republican or not? Does it make any difference to you whether he was Republican or not?
He's not going to change. His views aren't going to change.
And that's the way most people are starting to see. So most people are saying, hey, I don't care what he runs as. Doesn't matter.
No, and it doesn't.
Because what does matter is what he is
all about,
and what he has done and what he's accomplishing.
And he's accomplishing so much right now.
Well, there's never been anybody in the history of the United States a president that has accomplished as much in that amount of time. There's been some great presidents.
You're darn right, but that's
I'm talking about in that amount of time.
Yeah.
And so the average person might sit there and say, well, I don't see where Trump's done anything. Man, I'd seen the list the other day, and I went down that list. It's stuff you wouldn't even believe. I mean, you don't even give
aside from the fact of the pulse of the country. You can feel the pulse of every place I go. I can feel that.
Yeah, there's a shift, mm-hmm. which brings me up to another thing because he has that Twitter, mm-hmm. and you get to where you really have to read that Twitter and really read it. Okay, uh-huh. Like think about it, mm-hmm. and it's very short.
Yeah,
and I go to it every morning, which I guess I'm not alone because guess what? He just exceeded 50 million people.
Whoa! Oh my goodness!
I mean, the Pope used to be the biggest.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, now it's
And Trump's got him beat by 10 million people.
And he's growing more and more all the time.
15,000 a day on average.
Unbelievable.
But that's where you're getting the truth.
Yeah.
You see. And so what people are saying, I'm listening to that news last night. Boy, I better go see what Trump has to say about that in the morning.
Yeah.
Trump won't put a word in there without having thought, but there's a reason for that. But here's something that is important, and the press cannot understand how come this guy, they try everything in the world, why is it that his popularity keeps going up? There's a number of reasons, right? But let's think about this. It has to be communicated. If you read his Twitter, those tweets sound like something written by any American anywhere, whether you're a construction worker, whether you're an attorney, a CP, or whatever you are.
Yeah.
He speaks the language of the common people, and he says it in the way we say it.
Yeah.
So when you read his Twitter, well, and people say that because they ask him once in a while. They read his Twitter and say, man, I'll tell you what, he says it just like I'd say it. I'd say the same thing. You notice there's no gobbledygook.
And I've been hearing that for months and months. You know, people have been saying that.
Well, there's no gobbledygook as far as we have to now go look in the dictionary and see what the heck that word meant.
Yeah.
There's none of this lawyer speak.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I read, you do too, you know, you read where a lawyer is diagnosing something or prognosing something, and you read it, and you have to sit there and go to Google and get a dictionary half the time, right? Trump, man, he talked just like like some guy you met on a bus. So he understands how to speak to the average American.
Very important. Yeah.
And now we all have our sense of manners and our sense of how we present. But what he does say, he presents it kind of like maybe the way you would be talking if you was in your home.
Yeah.
You see? Maybe not out in public, but in your home or with your friends. You're very he's speaking just like, so what does that mean? And then, man, that guy's one of us. And so when he does speak then, in a way that we can understand it, and in a manner that we can relate to because it sounds like us or it sounds like just like the conversation I have at the coffee shop, I understand it. And I feel like, hey, this guy is just like me.
Yeah.
And so then it makes him more effective with that. And and another proof of that being effective that way is how the press tries and degenerate and disparage that to no end. Now, why would they do that if it wasn't having a negative effect on them? He's not. When they criticize Trump, remember this: they never criticize Trump to help Trump.
Oh, I know that.
That's not a critique to help Trump.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So anytime you hear the press, boy, Trump did this, Trump, remember that's not because they're trying to help Trump. Oh, I wish he wouldn't say this, and I wish he wouldn't say that. That's not because they're trying to help Trump. They're
I
trying
know
to
that.
destroy Trump. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. We've talked about the fake news and the false news here for the last 5 or 6 months, and for a while there, I thought that things were starting to change, but it hadn't. You know, they're still as strong as ever, and still.
Well, it's not going to. I know. I'm like you. I'm thinking they'll change. They're not going to change, Ray, is because what owns them is not going to change.
Yeah.
And the reason they're not going to change is because we're talking about trillions of dollars at stake.
Back to Soros and company.
Well, and there just goes. There's probably, I don't know, who knows. Well, the owners of of CBS, NBC, every single one of them is I call them a communist.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else they are, socialist, communist, you name it. I know one thing: it takes away from our ability to be a free people.
Yes.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
And so that's not going to change. Well, they hire, like, let's say here, you and I, and they come and say, man, we're going to pay you guys $100,000 a show if you'll say this. So you and I are going to have a hard time not to say that.
Yeah.
And
makes it easy. Yeah.
And they got these people back there. How in the world do you pay Megyn Kelly $21 million?
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
You see what I mean?
For what?
Well, I mean, she's going to say exactly what they tell her to say.
You're doggone right she is.
Okay, now let's look at the congressman. Who makes the decision is the lobbyist.
Yeah.
Which are hired by big companies to get and influence the congressman. Mm-hmm. There's $5.8 million $2 million being spent every year by the lobbyists, and it comes out per individual congressman and senate. That congressman and senate is going to have a hard time to say, hey, I just can't do that.
Yeah.
So they're Congress and the Senate is owned. And you see these guys now bailing out, right? So the American people have to take this themselves and just bite whatever it is, get involved, and elect people, who are representing you. And not somebody that's being bought by somebody back there.
Absolutely, Gary. Absolutely.
And Ray, just like, let's just take it local. Let's say there's two guys running, one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. And I know you and I are Republicans, but we find out that this Democrat is really going to straighten that thing out. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not going to get bought. Now, when it goes to the polls, even though that's a Democrat, I'm going to vote for that guy. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make any difference whether he's a Democrat or Republican, because he's not going to be bought. I'll give you an example of someone we have right now firsthand representing this valley is Devin Nunes.
Yeah, oh yeah, perfect. Good example, Nunes. Yeah. Good example.
So if you take Nunes with his idea of what serving the American people are, multiply him times the 500 congressmen and the 100 senators, would we have a problem? America would be great, wouldn't it? So what Trump's trying to do, he's trying to get the parties to have the kind of candidates that he needs to get his programs through. And what are his programs? No, they're yours and my programs.
Absolutely.
Because he has only one interest, and that is you and I, and make America great again. So anytime he's sitting down negotiating with Nicaragua, as an example, he's thinking, well, this is going to be best for Ray and Gary back in Fresno.
Yeah.
He's thinking about that for every single American.
Yeah.
So if he can get congressmen to think that way, which obviously a Devin Nunes is, and people like that, and we have a Congress now that thinks like Trump does, and we have a Senate that thinks like Trump
him,
does. Now, what do you think this country becomes? Utopia.
We used that word before. I love it. Yeah.
So, and for every American.
Yeah. For every American.
So this is what we get down to, and it's a shame when we've mentioned that. Obviously, it's a shame that there's ghettos and that there's. When I say ghettos, I'm not talking about nationality ghettos or race ghettos. I'm talking about economic ghettos.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
You see what I mean? Economically, there should not be a ghetto in the United States.
Especially not in this country.
Especially not in this. By now, 200 years later?
Yeah.
And there's more than less?
Yeah.
There's more than less. What's the problem? There is a problem. So when we think about that, Ray, would there be a ghetto maybe of a certain nationality? Yes. But is that ghetto there because of the nationality, or is it there because of economics?
It's there because of economics. Because of economics.
And so what we do then is make the economics equal to anyone, and have it have the mechanism, because of Congress, because of Senate, because of the president, and because of the judiciary system, that it is solely because of economics. Because we've made the economics to where there is no excuse for anyone to be in a poverty-induced ghetto. And I was encouraged by we talked about Diamond and Silk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Those are great ladies. Boy, did they put it on the line the other day.
I've got to watch more of them. I've only seen them a couple of times.
Oh man, yeah, they're great. And they mentioned this about what happened recently. She says, and they use the term, "We're tired of living on Democrat plantations." She said that's the only thing it is.
Yeah.
And they went into other.
Yeah.
Other facets. Oh, those girls. They explain it in a way that you can understand it. I mean, they're easy to listen to. they have a flair of showmanship with it. You know, they're very charismatic. They're sisters, you know.
Yeah.
And they have a way of presenting it in a way you're going to understand it. And they're entertaining.
Well, I've only seen them once.
And they're passionate.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no fooling around with those girls.
You're the one that told me about it in the first place.
In fact, Trump, when they're there, if they happen to be in the audience at one of his rallies, he always has them come up.
Oh, does he?
Oh, yeah. But see, you need more people like that.
Yeah, you do.
But what is really interesting is recently there was an incident that came up which had to do with Facebook, and that incident came up, and what happened was Facebook has been editorializing the people who making their comments on there.
Oh, wow.
And they eliminated.
Yeah, I heard a little of that.
You heard a little of that. What they did is they eliminated Diamond and Silk. They're conservatives, and they took what Diamond and Silk and they said, and they made this statement: they're unsafe for Americans.
That's what they said?
That's what they said. So then the question is, well, what's unsafe about Diamond and Silk?
Yeah.
And boy, gave an opening for them. They've been on Fox News. They've been all over.
That just blossomed them right at the top.
Oh man, and they sell stuff like cups and you know, and so they're and the thing that's interesting is I don't know how much education they have or not, as far as formal education, but they're very articulate.
Yeah.
And they don't say stupid things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean they're pretty impressive.
Well, I look forward to seeing them again.
Yeah. And so anyway, that kind of thing has gone on. And boy, I'll tell you, these people had no idea. Kicking Diamond and Silk off, because they're unsafe for Americans to hear.
Took them right up through the...
Yes, just the opposite. That's right. Just the opposite occurred. In fact, now they're getting their word out, which people would not have paid attention in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, now if you'll notice, we have that discussion right here with Diamond and Silk. And you you maybe saw them a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay, can you imagine this kind of conversation that you and I are having is all over the United States? Or just not you and I? And can you imagine now the more people who do become aware of Diamond and Silk and what their message is?
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah, it is.
Is the message they say.
Yeah.
So then what happens? People become more aware.
Yeah.
And then that's part of what we're talking about.
Sure it is.
And it was interesting to me, I just read this morning that, which we discussed before, but the black support for Trump has doubled.
That was this morning? That's great.
Yeah, and we had to discuss it before.
Yeah, we had.
But now, and one guy makes a statement, if it ever got to 10%, it's over. And right now they think it's probably at 13%.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Ray, that's going to do anything but double in another year.
Oh yeah, absolutely it will.
I wouldn't. I think I might have said it before. It would not surprise me that the blacks predominate. Their predominating party becomes the Republican Party.
Well, let me tell you something.
Which it was at one time.
Let me tell you something I've noticed just out and about in the streets. And as you well know, I wear a Trump shirt every day. Every day I wear a different colored one. I've got 19 of them, so I wear one every single day. Well, I'm having more young African Americans come up to me and shake my hand and say,
Really?
man, this is cool. Of lately, especially the last 2 or 3 months, it's amazing. I meant to tell you last week.
God, that is encouraging.
It is. It's very encouraging.
Man, that is. And you had none of that before.
None. All of a sudden, they're coming up, shaking my hand, saying, man, that's really cool. Where do I get a shirt like that?
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you believe.
Right.
Just interesting.
That is fascinating.
25-year-olds, college students,
Right.
Probably
Right.
college grads,
Right.
But sharp kids.
Yeah, but take that and multiply it all over the United States
yeah.
to see what's happening. And also, the people that age, man, they're looking at it a little different right now.
Yes, they are.
And it's starting to get to where it's cool to be a Trumper. Mm-hmm. At first it was, oh man, but now it's kind of cool being.
This kid said, he says, I'm out on my own now. He says, I got a degree. He says, I want to work for myself. And he says, He says, I think that's what Trump's all about. I said, that's exactly what he's all about.
Right.
Entrepreneurship. That's exactly what he's all about.
Right. Because that is what makes America great.
Sure it is.
And the thing is, Ray, it's a stroke of nature that if you work for yourself, doesn't it stand to reason that if you're working for somebody, you got to be getting paid less than what you're worth?
Oh, absolutely.
Why would he hire you?
Absolutely.
So then I look at it and just say, well, listen.
No one's going to pay you what you're worth,
Well, he can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford it.
Yeah.
But what we can do, if we happen to be that worker, is now we pay ourselves what we're worth.
Yeah.
We become our own number one employee.
Absolutely.
Employee.
Yeah.
Now what we're doing, instead of working and then giving part of it, for what our efforts are, then this way we keep it for ourselves.
Yes.
And I learned that when I was in my 20s, thank God,
I learned it at an early age, too.
But anyway, and now we have a deal, which we talked about last week, and it is because of Trump's program, which he said it was bigger than even the tax thing, and that is, why not earn what you're worth, but then keep what you did earn?
We're talking about White Apple, and I'm gonna have Gary talk a little bit about that. We're gonna take a little break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about White Apple today, and it's something that's coming. It's on its way. It's gonna be a lot of help to a lot of Americans. I'm glad I'm a part of it. So we'll discuss that when we come back. We'll be back in say 2 and 2. Okay, I'm back with Gary. We're going to talk about White Apple today, Gary. Let's talk about it. Let's take it kind of, if we can, slowly from the beginning and.
Yeah, what it is it's all about keeping the money you earned on your side of the ledger for as long as you can, and basically what it is deferring the amount of taxes you owe, and I'm going to try to keep it real simple.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah, the average taxpayer pays $10,000 to the federal government every year in the form of taxes. That's the average. Okay, so we'll just work with that. And so what White Apple's about is, and that's because of what the tax cut bill that Trump just got through, right? Now what this does, it gives the average American the ability to take that $10,000 he owes the IRS, and now he has a choice of being able to defer that at a later date, actually after he retires as such. Mm-hmm. But he takes that $10,000 that he would be paying the IRS, and he basically pays it to his own account, which would be like an IRA or a 401k or something. Yeah. Okay, so what happens to that $10,000 in its simplest form? Well, instead of going to the IRS, it goes to his account. Right? Let's just assume that it stays there, right? Okay. Till you retire. Okay, that $10,000 is $10,000 that you earned. That's the thing you got to keep in mind. It's always your money first. Yeah. And you make the decision about your money first. And Trump gave you a option.
This is what's so beautiful about this whole program.
That you now are able to do that. But he doesn't want you to take that $10,000 and put it under a mattress somewhere, which it has no use, because the government would use that. Right?
Circulation.
Yeah. So what you do is you determine where your $10,000 is spent. So that $10,000 goes into your account, but what did it do to get there? It had to go buy a piece of equipment to someone who needed the utility of a piece of equipment and didn't have the money to buy it, but had the wherewithal, getting back to the guy starting his own business, right? I don't care what kind of business. So what happens is, in the simplest form, is you, Ray, buy the guy's equipment, and then that $10,000 that you're going to have to spend it anyway. Instead of you spending it by writing a check to the IRS, you write a check to the equipment company.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the bottom line. The guy that ends up with the equipment, he leases that equipment from you, And as those payments he's making on the equipment, where do they go? Well, they go to you into your retirement program. So if over a career, let's say a 30 career, I've already done the math, so we won't have to do that. In a 30-year career of anybody, average 10,000 per year over a 30-year period, that will have accumulated and compounded to the point of 1.2 million. Well, so let's just call it 1 million in 30 years.
Pretty sweet.
Okay, now that would be in addition to whatever your retirement was. So let's say, as an example, that you had a great job and you took this $10,000 and you had a great, and I see them up and down the street where I live. I talk to them. They're happy with your job. You're very satisfied. You're living life. You're living the American dream. Okay, and you have a nice retirement that the company has provided for you. And when you retire, you already have an idea what it's going to be. And by God, it's going to be pretty nice. Now let's do this. Let's just add whatever it is, and let's just add $1 million. Pretty interesting.
Very, very.
And it's right there for every American. You don't have to be this or you don't have to be that. You just got to be an American that is aware of it.
Yeah.
And I used
very
to.
Simple.
Yeah, and this goes to the idea that, you know, like, of course, we're all subject to our lifespan.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this program I'm talking about was available back in the late 60s, early 70s. And then it was abolished. By who? That Uniparty. Those people that did not want to see you get ahead, because by you getting ahead meant that they're not going to.
Yeah.
And so that's what people have to realize. Trump is going to those trillionaire, million, it's trillions of dollars, but they go to these millions. It says, hey, whoa, wait a minute. You got this backwards. What we're going to do is that what you've been ripping off these people all this time, they're going to get, and you're going to get what they've been.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it.
It's just simple as that, really. And so I get a little envious. I'm talking to some kid that's in his 20s. Look, like the people you talked about, one of the people you talked to said, well, I just want to work for myself.
Yeah.
You kind of get a little bit envious because he has this available for the next 30 years of what you never had.
Yeah.
And in fact, you had it taken away from me because it was there at one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you had it taken away by those people who do not have your best interest in mind.
What's so good about White Apple, too, is that, it's great for younger, but it's also good for everybody else, too.
Oh, of course. I mean, I don't care if you're going to retire next year. Let's do it now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I agree with that. And so anyway, it's a different way of, you have to think a different way. But let's go back to that kid that you talked to that said he wants to start something on his own. Okay, that is the guy you could imagine. And next time you see him, if in fact you do, just tell him, says, well, whatever it is you start your own, I guarantee you, and you do it for 30 years, you will have an additional $1 million over and above whatever it is you got.
That's pretty darn impressive for a young person. Very
and so what does Trump think? He thinks that America should be wealthy. Okay, what happens when people start sharing in the wealth? They become more equal. So it's no longer
Don't you love it? Say that. Isn't that beautiful? What happens when people share in the wealth? They become more equal. Great statement.
Yeah.
Great statement.
And so what happens is we have this economic equality. So then how are we judged? We're judged on our own character and not some outside judgment based on the fact that,
he has a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. And so then let's do this. And I don't care, again, what nationality. Then you do this as well. We get to the point, the guy's sitting there with a blue shirt on, one guy's sitting there with a white shirt on. Well, the guy with the white shirt, he's got a little more money, which means we're not equal. But what happens if the blue-collar guy is making the same as the white-collar guy?
They're equal.
They're equal.
Yeah.
So there's none of this looking down on.
I love it. Oh, gosh. And, ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking at the clock. It's like it is. I say this every week when Gary's here. He and I were just talking about in the last break how this today particularly seemed to have just flown by really, really fast. So let me ask Gary, can you come back next week?
Sure, we'll come back, Ray.
All right. We get good stuff every time he comes. I got to tell you something about every week we talk about going up and to a law enforcement officer and shaking his hands. Well, day before yesterday, I went down and had breakfast at George's downtown, which, by the way, is my favorite breakfast place. Oh, my gosh, they've got a great breakfast there. I won't get into it. I'll get hungry and end up running down there after the show. But anyway, it's a great breakfast place. And I was coming out as a young policeman, really tall, was walking in. Now, I don't know. I hope you're watching. I know your name is Frank. What a great conversation. He approached me.
Really?
First thing he said, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm doing fine. How are you doing? I said, and by the way, and we took off from there, and we ended up standing out there and talking for a few minutes. But what a great, great young policeman. And I wish I'd gotten Frank's last name. Just a wonderful, wonderful individual. So do that. When you see a law enforcement officer, go up, stick your hand out, shake his hand, tell him how much we appreciate them, because we do. And they don't get nearly as much praise as they deserve. You know, they're here to help us. They're our finest. They go out and do things that none of the rest of us want to do. So let's tell them how much we appreciate them.
You know, Ray, that is great that you say that, because it really is important.
I think it is.
And it's important in this of the whole mood and the whole change, things like that.
Yeah.
But you asked about coming back, Ray. I tell you, I get to have a conversation with you, and to me, it's just like sitting at a bar without booze.
I love it. I love the way you put that. That's great. That's great. And we do. We have fun. I just love having Gary here. Well, anyway, so I'm going to sign off by saying, as I do every week, until we meet joyously again next Friday, heaven's blessings.
The men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Valley Talk.